It was the year 2022, in Dongshan City. A young man, Shanghai, slapped himself in disbelief, but the sting on his cheek only confirmed that this was real. He stared at the strange purple glowing dungeon portal before him, realizing this wasn't a dream. The crackling energy of the portal filled the room. Sitting on his bed, Shanghai expressed shock, unable to believe that a dungeon portal had appeared right in his home. In the year 2012, dungeon entrances began appearing all around the world. What started as exploration quickly turned into looting, rapid development, and chaos. Uncontrolled dungeon outbreaks led to riots across nations. After this wave of turmoil, governments around the world confirmed 5 undeniable truths. First, dungeon entrances cannot be destroyed, but clearing the dungeon from within can close them. Second, if a dungeon is not cleared within a certain time, it will burst open and monsters will flood into the world. Third, those who enter a dungeon and survive become stronger. Fourth, the stronger the dungeon's monsters, the greater the rewards inside. Fifth, the highest level dungeon bosses are so powerful they cannot be eliminated even with nuclear weapons. Over the past decade, as dungeon portals continuously appeared and were cleared, the world gradually grew accustomed to their existence. In recent years, information about dungeons and adventures had been gradually released to the public. People in business attire stood around falling papers. A research report, like one from a Canadian media outlet on adventures, was published. It stated that as of July 2022, there were roughly 35,000 registered adventures globally, with only about 1 in every 200,000 ordinary people becoming an adventurer. These 35,000 adventurers had an average net worth of $20 million. The scarcity and high income established a corresponding social status, elevating this occupation to a high position in the public's perception. From the perspective of the public, an adventurer's path seems like a direct ascent to fortune, a chance to seize opportunities rarely encountered. Some adventurers, like the one who earned over $5 billion in 3 years, appear to embody this success. Yet, few truly understand that behind every high-level adventurer's rise lie countless low-level adventurers and ordinary people whose lives were lost in the underground. And then there is Shanghai, our protagonist. He is one of the rare few who are aware of this hidden, difficult truth. Standing in his room, scratching his head, a troubled expression crosses his face. He looks at the purple glowing object, the dungeon portal, that has appeared. He thinks to himself that this has certainly presented him with a significant challenge. He recalls 5 years ago, how the combined death rate for entering a dungeon portal was 50%. He thinks about that 50-50 death rate and decides that becoming an adventurer seems too risky for him, especially since he isn't in need of money. Below him, a detail notes Shanghai is a best-selling author, listing some of his works related to adventurers and underground knowledge. He considers another option, perhaps reporting it to the official Adventurer Association. He remembers that ordinary citizens who discover and report a dungeon entrance can receive physical rewards, even rare treasures. He holds his phone, contemplating this course of action. As he holds his phone, a news notification pops up. The screen displays the time and date, and a headline announcing that a worker from the Shenzhen Association has been apprehended by the police on reliable information. The news links the person to suspicions of involvement in illegal activities, specifically trading dungeon entrances. He stares at the phone, his expression one of shock and concern. The ellipses above his head convey his speechless reaction to the news he's just seen. He folds his arms, a different thought forming. On second thought, if he were unlucky enough to encounter an association worker who is corrupt and willing to endanger others for profit, wouldn't that be akin to walking straight into a tiger's den? He considers this possibility, his previous plan now seeming dangerous. Selling it to a capitalist group is simply out of the question. He considers the risks involved with that approach. He thinks about how a newly discovered dungeon entrance might be used fewer than 10 times before the entrance resets. To avoid any potential issues or revealing that he's selling it, they might even arrange an accident for him. He concludes that relying on capitalists' morality to ensure his personal safety, especially with surveillance and control until the usage limit is met, is an even more preposterous idea. However, he realizes he cannot simply leave it alone either. If left unchecked, the dungeon entrance will eventually destabilize, causing monsters from within to surge out. He knows that if casualties or damage to public property occur later, his knowledge of the portal without reporting it could lead to a 20-year prison sentence. He finds himself in a difficult position, with no easy way out. Shanghai looked at his phone, needing to check the type of entry-level dungeon portal that appeared near his home. If it was a survival type with a higher death rate, he decided he would move to another city and report it to the police. If it was a hunting type with a higher survival rate, he planned to handle it himself, as he couldn't back down from the decision he'd already made. He browsed through the dungeon entry guide on his phone, noting the different portal shapes and descriptions. He saw the vibrant purple portal listed. Checking the details, he found it was a level 2 hunting type with an 8% survival rate. He felt a sense of luck, seeing the favorable statistics. 2 days later, the doorbell rang persistently. A delivery person stood outside the door, holding a package and announcing they had a delivery for him. Cheng Hai, appearing at the door, responded quickly, confirming he was coming. The delivery person presented a large package for Cheng Hai to sign for. Cheng Hai confirmed he would sign for it. As Cheng Hai signed, the delivery person casually asked if he had perhaps found a wild dungeon portal, wondering why else someone would order chainmail. Cheng Hai froze completely at the question, his face tight with surprise. Cheng Hai recovered with a forced laugh, quickly picking up and swinging what looked like bat. He claimed he was just practicing baseball and needed new gear because his old equipment was broken. He asked if there was an issue. The delivery person smiled, adjusting their cap, and reassured him there was no problem, he was simply curious. Watching the delivery person walk away down the hall, Cheng Hai let out a wary breath. He knew ordinary people were very excited about becoming adventurers, but being questioned so directly felt uncomfortably probing. Cheng Hai quickly closed the door behind him, the package now sitting on a surface nearby. He stood inside his apartment, looking a little startled but relieved to be alone again. He stood there, a bead of sweat tracing a path down his face, lost in a moment of intense thought. He quickly took off his clothes, throwing them on the floor. The mailbox that he ordered was quickly emptied, taking out chainmail and other things to try. Heavy footsteps echoed as he stood ready in armored boots. Clad now in chainmail and plate, the weight felt significant, a tightness pressing against his chest, but he gripped the axe purchased nearby, ready. Walking in the armor didn't hinder him, it felt manageable. Because of perfect fit he ordered. He lifted his gaze, focusing on dungeon portal ahead. Facing the pulsating purple glow of the dungeon portal, a single thought formed in his mind. Gripping his axe, he decided it was time to move forward. His armored hand reached out, a crackling sound filling the air as he approached the dungeon gate. In the very next second, he stepped through the dungeon gate, beginning his journey as an adventurer, leaving behind only his fading shadow. On the other side of the dungeon, a vibrant purple light pulsed through a forest brimming with lush greenery, crisp fresh air, and an atmosphere steeped in tranquil calm. Cheng Hai, clad in his newly acquired chainmail armor and helmet, gripped his axe. He wondered if this was truly a dungeon and speculated that a beast like Agnol might be his first opponent within its depths. A wide grin spread across Cheng Hai's face beneath his helmet. He felt a surge of satisfaction, realizing his purchase of chainmail armor hadn't been in vain. Recalling the official information about newbies entering dungeons, Cheng Hai knew he should be able to activate his status window to check the exit condition. He extended a finger, reaching for an invisible interface. With a distinct sound, a golden system interface materialized before him, displaying prominent options for status items, achievement, and missions. Cheng Hai exclaimed softly as it appeared. The status window presented his details: Cheng Hai, human adventurer, rating level 1, a newbie, profession none. His foundation attributes were listed: strength 9, agility 9, physique 10, wisdom 16, sense 10, charm 11. He mused over the numbers. He compared his attributes to what he remembered about average people, noting that while 8 was poor and 14 good, the average was typically around 10. Cheng Hai reflected that his strength and agility of 9 were expected given his lack of training, but his wisdom of 16 came as a surprise. Despite attributes like wisdom and charm being less useful initially, Cheng Hai found pride in his level 1 wisdom of 16, considering it rare even for experienced adventurers. He chuckled, knowing strength, agility, and physique could be improved through training, but wisdom was different. A sudden realization hit him, prompting a cough. He felt he had become too confident and needed to calm down, bringing his armored hands up towards his face in a gesture of self-reprimand. Regaining his composure, Cheng Hai focused his attention back on the system interface. He decided the next logical step was to check the exit mission, his finger pointing towards the mission icon. A system window appeared, detailing the current mission titled Murloc's Hunt Season. It listed the challenge as level 2, noted that one of 5 challenges was currently active, and stated the dungeon exit condition was to kill any Murloc. The clear condition required eliminating a title Murloc team. The system also informed him he had 9 remaining challenge chances and displayed the time until the dungeon expanded. Cheng Hai looked at the displayed system information, his expression under the helmet showing clear annoyance and disbelief at the mission details presented to him. He expressed his frustration regarding the mission target, questioning why it had to be Murlocs and stating a personal aversion to seafood. He wished aloud for a more ordinary enemy to face. Further along the forest path, a Murloc moved, holding a spear. In the distance it was visible, positioned on the path ahead. The Murloc made soft guttural sounds as it moved through the undergrowth near the path. Cheng Hai crouched and hidden in a nearby bush, watched from the shadows with piercing eyes. Letting out a sudden roar, he clutched his weapon tightly, ready to engage the murloc before him. The murloc lunged forward, thrusting its spear, while Cheng Hai moved swiftly to evade the attack with his own weapon. Under his helmet, Cheng Hai's face registered shock and disbelief as the murloc successfully evaded his counter-attack. The murloc made questioning sounds, its eyes wide. It registered that adventurers had indeed arrived in their forest, confirming what its leader had predicted. The scene shifts as the soft blue sky of morning deepens into the bright, golden light of noon. Cheng Hai stood tiredly in a forest clearing, wiping his forehead. At his feet lay a defeated murloc. He couldn't believe how difficult it was, wondering if the challenge was setting correctly. Looking down at the monster, its large eyes staring blankly, he thought about how a single murloc had nearly defeated him. Facing a group of them seemed impossible. Suddenly, a system notification appeared before Cheng Hai, announcing that he had leveled up. He looked at the holographic display in surprise. He accessed his status window, which showed his name, race, adventurer rating as a level 2 newbie, and his attributes. Below that, he saw a title listed. He couldn't help but react with disbelief at the title he had earned, which was Can Fight Murloc One-on-One. Holding his spear, Cheng Hai decided that was enough for one day and it was time to stop. Turning away from the area, Cheng Hai walked back up a slope through the woods carrying spear. He resolved to hire a private coach to improve his skills and attributes before challenging the dungeon again when he was stronger. Back in a room, the purple glowing dungeon portal was still present against the wall. Cheng Hai emerged from inside of it. Completely exhausted, Cheng Hai collapsed onto a couch, feeling as though he had just completed half a year's worth of exercise. Cheng Hai, still clad in his chain armor, stared at the flickering holographic display before him, a question forming in his mind about what the strange system was indicating now. The system interface titled Murloc's Hunt Season detailed the challenge, showing he had met the exit condition by killing a murloc but failed the clear condition. He registered that the mission was done, his thoughts drifting to the expectation that completing dungeon missions should yield valuable items. A message appeared on the screen, stating that the system had detected his departure from the dungeon and was beginning the calculation process. Cheng Hai couldn't help but think hopefully, asking inwardly for a simple reward, perhaps just a potion that could permanently increase an attribute. The calculation finished, delivering a devastating blow, a rating of E, accompanied by a blunt message questioning if he could be any more useless. The reward was listed as a common white item, a normal thermos. His reaction was one of stunned silence. The harsh judgment from the system ignited a surge of frustration within him. He cried out defiantly, asking what difference his current weakness made, asserting that everyone starts out like trash before they manage to grow stronger. He quickly reconsidered, deciding that any reward was better than none at all. The white item appeared before him, and he decided to examine it, wanting to see what function this seemingly insignificant object possessed. The system displayed information about the thermos, stating it could store 500 ml of pure water and was potentially upgradable. Looking at the mundane description, another wave of anger rose within him. His frustration boiling over at receiving such a useless reward, Cheng Hai, still in his armor, erupted in a shout of disgust, asking who would ever want such garbage, and then he forcefully threw the thermos away. Next day Cheng Hai arrived at a modern building, its exterior bearing the name Whale Sports. He announced his appointment with trainer Anne. Inside the gym, a woman with short hair greeted Cheng Hai, confirming his identity. She informed him that trainer Anne was waiting in the VIP room and asked him to follow her. Cheng Hai acknowledged her instructions. As Cheng Hai walked through the gym, he reflected on his surprise that a smaller place like Dongshan offered specialized body training services for new adventurers and candidates. A look of resolve, mixed with a hint of concern, crossed Cheng Hai's face. He knew the annual cost was substantial, requiring his book's copyright fee, but he believed the investment in his physical strength would ultimately prove worthwhile. The blue-skinned woman turned to Cheng Hai, inquiring if he had any previous gym experience. Cheng Hai, facing away from her, simply replied that he did not. The woman then questioned his decision to hire a coach and at such a high cost, suggesting a normal trainer would be sufficient for a beginner looking to establish foundational skills. She then mused to herself, wondering if Cheng Hai had already become a newbie adventurer and was perhaps in a hurry. Cheng Hai regarded her question, finding it quite direct and straightforward. With a determined smile and a raised fist, Cheng Hai explained that since he could afford it, hiring a professional was essential. He believed a normal trainer wouldn't be adequate for someone whose goal was to become an adventurer. The woman understood his reasoning. Cheng Hai paused at the bright doorway, a small figure visible beyond. He heard a voice state that he should be able to continue from there. A wave of nervousness washed over Cheng Hai as he considered the reputation of Dongshan City's best trainer. His anxiety was palpable. The woman offered her best wishes, hoping he'd get along with Trainer An. Before him stood a man with long teal hair, wiping sweat from his face with a towel. Cheng Hai felt surprised, as the man before him was not the muscular trainer he had imagined, but rather a slightly handsome guy. The man, also seemingly curious, looked back at Cheng Hai. Cheng Hai gripped his gym bag tightly as a powerful, incredibly muscular presence loomed behind him. He heard the imposing figure comment on the expensive cost of his lessons, yet someone still booked for it. A look of pure shock and disbelief spread across Cheng Hai's face. He could only think that this sudden turn of events must be a joke. And Ran, a massively built man with a strong jaw and short dark hair, looked down at Cheng Hai, asking if he wished to become an adventurer. A system notification confirmed Ran's identity as an ranked trainer at Whale's gym. Cheng Hai lay on the bench, his arms shaking violently as he attempted to lift the barbell. Ran was counting the repetitions, pushing him further through the struggle. As Ran counted the 5th repetition, Cheng Hai's entire body shook under the strain. He desperately pleaded with the coach, admitting he could no longer hold on. Cheng Hai pushed through his bench press set until Ran's voice signaled the end. His trainer's strong hands took over the heavy barbell, allowing Cheng Hai's own exhausted hand to relax after the intense effort. Sweat poured from Cheng Hai's face as he listened to Ran's assessment. His trainer noted his performance, having completed a 30 lift 5 times, estimated his single maximum weight at 35 egg. Ran plainly stated that, considering Cheng Hai's weight and status as a fitness beginner, his bench press was quite poor. Cheng Hai's expression tightened, shock and frustration evident on his face. He found himself questioning his own weakness, knowing his body was not strong, but still struggling to comprehend just how feeble he truly was. He wondered if the average adventurer didn't at least possess a strength of 50. Another man, a student of Trainer An, joined the conversation, confirming Cheng Hai's poor physical foundation. He elaborated that Cheng Hai's 35 limit would likely translate to only 9 points in an adventurer's strength status window. He explained that normal individuals typically have balanced attributes in strength, physique, and agility, implying Cheng Hai was far from the norm, given his current state. It seemed nearly impossible for him to catch up to substitute adventurers who had already completed their foundational attribute training. Still drenched in sweat, Cheng Hai, looking determined despite his exhaustion, finally managed to ask the trainers about the typical duration required to reach a decent level of strength. Ran explained that for someone at Cheng Hai's current level, consistent daily training for an entire season would be necessary to achieve 11 points in the 3 foundational attributes. He clarified that 11 points on an adventurer's status window indicated a strength roughly superior to that of a normal person. Cheng Hai absorbed the demanding reality of the path ahead. Cheng Hai, still clearly exhausted, nodded, acknowledging Ran's explanation. He understood the significant effort and time that would be required from him. With newfound resolve, Cheng Hai firmly told Ran to train him to the season's standard, asking about payment. Ran casually directed him to transfer the money via WeChat. Meanwhile, a blonde guy, Sumao, a contracted adventurer with Well Jim, cheerfully introduced himself to Cheng Hai, expressing his delight at having someone new around. Cheng Hai, in turn, introduced himself as a best-selling author, echoing the sentiment of hoping to get along well. Later at Burger Point, Sumao questioned why a beginner like Cheng Hai would seek out Trainer An, highlighting that while Ran's service was effective, it came at a significant cost. Sumo advised that if time wasn't an issue, one could train at home or find a cheaper private trainer to build strength without excessive spending. Sumao continued, explaining that individuals with normal backgrounds usually signed long-term contracts with associations or companies before considering a professional trainer like Ran. Cheng Hai listened, realizing he hadn't signed with Well Jim himself, and a thought surfaced. He couldn't actually afford Trainer An either. The blue-haired man explained to Cheng Hai that wealth wasn't an issue for him, given his successful book sales. He clarified that his true objective was to become an adventurer, which naturally meant seeking the best trainer to establish a strong foundation. Sumao appeared surprised, confessing he had mistakenly believed Cheng Hai had already found a wild dungeon and begun his journey as an adventurer. With an intent gaze, the blue-haired man decided that as Cheng Hai's senior in this field, he should impart some fundamental knowledge to ensure Cheng Hai wouldn't be easily deceived. The blue-haired man began explaining that entering a dungeon for the first time generates a unique title in an adventurer's status window. While equipping this title offers advantages, it also draws attention from other adventurers. He warned Cheng Hai about specific hunters who operate in low-ranked dungeons, often targeting those displaying such titles. Sumao further elaborated that hunters watch for unnatural behavior from those they suspect of having a title. If detected, the hunter would then confirm them as an adventurer and track them to reveal the location of a wild dungeon's entrance. Sumao internally concluded that Cheng Hai hadn't reacted to the information, dismissing him as merely a wealthy, aspiring author with no real experience. Meanwhile, Shanghai calmly acknowledged that he had indeed learned something new, successfully maintaining his unassuming facade. A wave of intense relief washed over Shanghai as he realized how narrowly he had escaped exposure. His secret was safe, thanks to his personal aversion to his rather embarrassing title, which he never equipped. Su Mao announced that Enran had likely completed the gym contract, suggesting it was time to return. Shanghai readily agreed, rising from his seat. Enran observed Su Mao, who had been conversing with Shanghai, noting he was a famous best-selling author using adventurers as material. Enran then realized the author's wealth explained his motivation for seeking training, likely intending to strengthen himself before entering the adventurer industry. Enran's assistant, who had been posing as gym staff to observe Shanghai, pondered his behavior. She noted he hadn't inquired about lessons and didn't seem to have discovered a wild dungeon entrance, a discovery which would necessitate a raid within a month. Enran considered the low probability of Shanghai, or any adventurer, discovering a wild dungeon portal on their own. His intense gaze betrayed a deep calculation as he weighed the unpredictable nature of such encounters against the young man's potential. As a system window briefly displayed his renowned title as the newbie killer, Enran stood confidently. He mused on the scenario where Su Mao might bring Shanghai back, intending for events to unfold without diverting his own focus. For now, he acknowledged the opportunity to earn additional funds before his upcoming raid on the elite dungeon in Dongshan City, an offer he found difficult to refuse. Shanghai and Su Mao stepped into the bright, open space of Whale's gym, taking in the environment and the people present. He observed the muscular trainer, Enran, standing by activating his title alongside a female staff member. The muscular trainer, Enran, informed Shanghai that the contract was ready for his review. He instructed Shanghai to read it thoroughly and sign it if he found no issues, to which Shanghai readily agreed. Shanghai's expression shifted to one of pure astonishment, a wide grin spreading across his face as he realized the gym actually had an A-ranked trainer. The thought seemed almost unbelievable to him. As Shanghai followed the female staff member further into the gym, guided by her gesture, Enran watched him go, while Su Mao remained with gym trainer. Enran reflected on Shanghai's composed demeanor, noting his normal expression and how his gaze hadn't lingered on the system title above his head. He found it unusual for someone who had just discovered a dungeon entrance and questioned Su Mao if anything out of the ordinary had occurred. A system notification confirmed Enran as a level 13 novice ranked partner of Whale's gym. Su Mao, in response to Enran's inquiry, explained that he was also a contracted adventurer with Whale's gym, indicating his own involvement and understanding of the situation. And a panel introduced Su Mao as a level 6 contracted adventurer of Whale's gym. Enran, dismissing the lingering thoughts, concluded there was no further need to dwell on Shanghai, turning and walking away. Shanghai completed the signing of the contract document, a pen lying beside it, signifying his commitment. He confirmed that he was finished with the paperwork. The female staff member handed the signed contract back to Shanghai, telling him to keep it safe. She then informed him that trainer would soon take him for a physical test, and Shanghai acknowledged her words. Shanghai, exhausted and sweating, sat slumped on a piece of gym equipment. Enran stood over him, holding a tablet, bluntly stating that Shanghai's physique was as weak as he had initially assessed, while a display showed a speed at 12.0 km and 103 calories burned. Enran, the gym trainer, informed Shanghai that their focus for the upcoming week would shift away from speed tests to primarily strength and fitness training. He then inquired about Shanghai's availability for these sessions. Shanghai, looking a bit fatigued and wiping sweat from his face, responded that he was free and available at any time. Enran gave Shanghai instructions to arrive at the gym at 10 am the following day, adding a specific instruction to avoid consuming oily food for breakfast beforehand. Later, lying on his bed, Shanghai found himself contemplating the nature of the fitness institution. He mused on how such a large organization might be exploiting new adventurers and candidates through their training programs. A growing concern settled in his mind. If his pretense were to falter even slightly, he feared being discovered and easily eliminated. Various pieces of his chain armor lay scattered around his room. A sudden realization struck Shanghai, causing his eyes to widen. He had been pondering the strange presence of an ranked trainer station in a seemingly small location, and a critical thought brought him to an abrupt halt. Shanghai's thoughts then shifted to the broader implications. He considered that if this specific issue held true, then potentially all services connected to the adventurer profession could be compromised. Holding his phone, Shanghai stared at a chat conversation. The message thread reminded him of a previous interaction where he had been asked if he wanted to purchase a weapon, to which he had replied that his signed lesson would provide one. He suddenly understood the full weight of the situation. realizing even the chainmail he had acquired could be part of the larger scheme. A wave of relief washed over Cheng Hai as he reflected on a fortunate decision. He realized he was lucky not to have bought his weapon and armor from the same vendor, as that foresight had prevented his exposure when he purchased his chainmail. Cheng Hai sat up on his bed, his gaze fixed on a vibrant, crackling purple dungeon portal. He acknowledged that he had severely underestimated the inherent risks of the adventurer profession, concluding that it was time to fundamentally alter his strategy. He quickly entered the dungeon, and as usual, was met with a sweeping view of a vast forest stretching toward distant, mist-covered mountains. Outside the immediate dungeon entrance, Cheng Hai moved quickly down the dusty path. His earlier aspiration to train further, and then challenge the dungeon now seemed distant. A bitter realization echoed in his mind: the real world was far crueler than he'd ever imagined, a landscape riddled with traps for low-level adventurers like himself. Wearing his chain armor and helmet, Cheng Hai considered his recent narrow escape from a trap. He knew his luck wouldn't last forever, and concluded that his immediate priority had to be to level up. A system window titled Molrock's Hunt Season appeared before Cheng Hai, detailing the challenge. It indicated the current challenge level is 2, with only 1 of 5 challengers present. The exit condition required 1 pair of Murloc eyes, while clearing the dungeon demanded the elimination of a title Murloc team. He noted the 8 remaining challenge chances, and the significant time remaining until the dungeon would expand. Cheng Hai's gaze narrowed as he processed the information, specifically the exit condition. He understood that obtaining Murloc eyes was crucial for this particular challenge. A sudden realization struck Cheng Hai while he was still armored and holding his axe. As if a forgotten detail about Murlocs had just come to mind, Cheng Hai paused, wondering if the Murloc eyes he had acquired yesterday might be useful for his current objective. He looked around the forest. Cheng Hai encountered a grisly scene: in a Murloc carcass, its organs visibly eaten, lay on the ground. Flies buzzed persistently around the decaying remains. Observing the mutilated Murloc, Cheng Hai noted that its organs had been consumed. He speculated that nearby wild dog-like creatures were likely responsible for the gruesome feast. Cheng Hai considered himself fortunate that he wouldn't have to engage in a fight today, as the necessary Murloc eyes were already available. He decided to use this unexpected reprieve to explore and record the surrounding landscape. Cheng Hai, clad in his chain armor and helmet, sensed a sudden presence, prompting him to pause and question the unexpected interruption to his solitude. His gaze settled on a Murloc standing on the path, wielding a spear. The creature immediately confronted him, demanding to know if Cheng Hai was responsible for its companion's demise, leaving Cheng Hai to silently process the Murloc's intense accusation. A sigh of relief escaped Cheng Hai as he realized it was merely a Murloc. His initial fright subsided, acknowledging he had overestimated the threat, thinking it was something far more dangerous. Confident he could easily dispatch a lone Murloc, Cheng Hai raised his axe, preparing for battle. The Murloc, however, responded with an aggressive cry, showing no signs of backing down and calling his another companion. Cheng Hai's short-lived confidence vanished as 2 more Murlocs emerged, confirming his grim realization that he was now hopelessly outnumbered. Panic set in. A 2-on-1 fight was unwinnable, prompting him to flee in desperation. Above the forest canopy, distant mountains faded into the blue sky, landscape that offered no immediate refuge from his pursuers. In the deeper shadows of the forest, Cheng Hai and the Murloc locked into a tense, low stance. The Murloc's taunting cries echoed, signaling to readiness to continue the pursuit. One Murloc lunged forward with a guttural roar, spear extended, charging with menacing speed towards Cheng Hai. A determined smirk formed on Cheng Hai's face as he prepared for the impact. He clenched his armored fist, a quiet defiance marking his resolve to face the oncoming attack. Cheng Hai, now regaining his composure, coolly confronted the Murloc, questioning its overconfidence. He implied the creature had yet to understand the true nature of the fight's outcome. Cheng Hai hit him with realization the grave situation as the Murloc found himself separated from his companion. A determined grin spread across Cheng Hai's face as he gripped his axe, his eyes glowing with renewed purpose. He felt a powerful shift, knowing the advantage was now his. The Murloc, now facing Cheng Hai's shifted demeanor, widened its large white eyes in utter terror, beads of sweat dripping from its scales. With a swift, impactful strike, Cheng Hai brought his axe down, the force of his blow leaving a dark, explosive stain. Yet in the pursuit, other Murloc arrived at scene, still agilely pursuing him, making its characteristic sounds as it wielded its spear. Cheng Hai paused, looking side at the another arrived Murloc, blood staining the earth. Another Murloc, now translucent and quivering, recoiled in fright as it witnessed the scene, making its terrified noises. The remaining Murloc's fear was palpable, its eyes wide and its skin slick with sweat as it stared in disbelief at Cheng Hai's destructive power. The tables truly turned as Cheng Hai, armed with his axe, relentlessly chased the Murloc through the dark forest. He demanded the creature stop its escape, while the murloc continued to make its desperate sounds as it fled. The system informed Shanghai that he had successfully exited the dungeon and was now calculating his performance. The system then displayed Shanghai's calculated dungeon rating, indicating his performance was merely as expected, and to his dismay, no rewards were allocated. Shanghai's frustration boiled over as he saw the new rating. It was higher than his previous attempt, yet the system still provided no rewards, leaving him questioning why. Exhausted from his efforts, Shanghai lay sprawled on the couch, his gear scattered around him, wondering if the beginner-ranked dungeons simply had an abysmal drop rate. He pondered the dilemma, thinking that if other adventurers faced the same reward system, they wouldn't be able to earn anything either, leading him to believe he must be missing some crucial common knowledge. Shanghai considered seeking advice from a Xu Mao or trainer and ran, but quickly dismissed the idea, deciding it was better to focus on leveling up first. He didn't want them to perceive him as a mere newbie adventurer struggling with basic knowledge. The next day, Shanghai arrived at the gym, surprised that Xu Mao and trainer and Ran weren't there yet. He learned that Xu Mao was out of town and trainer and Ran had temporary engagements until noon. Accepting this, Shanghai decided to begin his physical training in the VIP room alone. As Shanghai relentlessly ran on the treadmill, sweat pouring from him, and Ran and Xu Mao watched from a distance, observing his intense physical exertion. And Ran, holding a clipboard, commented on Shanghai's intense training, noting his consistent effort even during his absence. Xu Mao confirmed his dedication, and Ran further observed that Shanghai's hard work would soon elevate his strength, physique, and agility to new levels. Shanghai continued his rigorous training, his masked face glistening with sweat as subtle particles seemed to fall around him, a testament to his unwavering commitment. Shanghai pushed his body to its limits on the treadmill, his relentless training drawing the attention of both Xu Mao and Ran. Xu Mao observed Shanghai's dedication, pondering that if the young man could maintain such a standard without injury or illness, he might even reach impressive levels in strength, agility, and physique within a single season. Xu Mao then turned to Ran, suggesting that the coach should try to recruit Shanghai for Whale's gym. He believed that with Shanghai's potential, drive, and financial resources, he was destined to become at least an average adventurer. And Ran explained that he had already approached Shanghai before Xu Mao's return, but Shanghai had refused the offer. Shanghai's desire was to become an adventurer through the black market slot trading, aiming to solo dungeons, and enjoy the freedom of an individual adventurer, unrestrained by associations or supervision. And Ran simply acknowledged that everyone had their own aspirations. The strenuous effort of Shanghai's training was evident as droplets of sweat splashed onto the gym floor, a stark visual of his absolute exhaustion. Panting heavily, Shanghai pushed himself beyond his limits until his body finally gave out, collapsing onto the floor in a sweat-soaked heap. Xu Mao watched, voicing his concern for the young man's intense dedication. Xu Mao gently cautioned Shanghai against working too hard, reminding him that such intense training could easily lead to injury. He then mused if Shanghai was planning to become an adventurer within the year, subtly questioning the urgency behind his efforts. Shanghai, still visibly fatigued, explained his urgent need to become an adventurer quickly. He revealed that any further delay would mean he could no longer afford the endeavor, hinting at underlying financial pressures driving his relentless pursuit. Xu Mao nodded, understanding Shanghai's situation. He acknowledged the rising costs on the black market for aspiring adventurers, which clearly illustrated the financial urgency behind Shanghai's ambitions. Later, sitting alone in a diner, Shanghai reflected on his recent interactions. He concluded that after Trainer N's recruitment attempt, both Xu Mao and Ran no longer suspected him of already being a beginner, rank adventurer capable of soloing wild dungeons. With his cover seemingly secure, Shanghai's gaze sharpened, his mind already set on the next step. He knew he just needed to find the perfect timing for his plans to unfold. Shanghai sat at the table lost in thought, his food untouched before him. Xu Mao, approaching with a tray of drinks, noticed his friend's unusual stillness, and inquired if something was weighing on his mind. Shanghai, looking wary with a bead of sweat on his brow, explained his lack of appetite by simply stating he was too tired. Xu Mao, appearing concerned, cautioned Shanghai about the dangers of overexertion. He explained that frequent overloaded exercise would only increase the risk of injury, ultimately hindering any real progress. Xu Mao acknowledged Shanghai's point, stating he understood the need to reduce his training load soon. Suddenly, his expression shifted, as if remembering something important. Shanghai, now more engaged, leaned in to ask Xu Mao a practical question about his adventurer profession, curious if he had managed to recoup his initial investment yet. Xu Mao explained that it was still early in his journey, estimating that he would likely earn back his initial investment once his adventurer level reached 11. Shanghai, holding his burger, looked intrigued by Xu Mao's specific mention of level 11 and asked why that particular milestone was significant. Sumao elaborated on the progression of adventurers, explaining that those at lower levels from 1 to 5 typically enjoyed a relatively easy and low-risk existence under the guidance of a veteran. Many without grand ambitions chose this path. However, he continued, from level 6 to 10, the difficulty of missions increased dramatically, and understanding monsters became crucial, transforming most into information gatherers, barely surviving if careful. Sumao stressed that reaching level 11 fundamentally changed everything. Dungeon difficulties escalated, forcing adventurers to forego relaxation, but it was also the point where real earnings began. Qinghai thoughtfully absorbed this, as Sumao emphasized that at this critical stage, adventurers would prioritize enhancing their combat abilities above all else. The need for enhanced combat ability at level 11 meant that equipment, artifacts, and skill books, essentially anything that could improve an adventurer's survival chances, became highly coveted and commanded exorbitant prices. Qinghai grappled with a profound question, wondering why adventurers seemingly neglected to prepare adequately for the treacherous higher levels, especially when the dangers escalated so dramatically beyond level 11. He pondered why they wouldn't strive to become stronger during the comparatively safer levels of 6 through 10. Suma offered an explanation, clarifying that the Adventurer Association didn't compel anyone to raid dungeons, which often led many to consider retirement or return to normal life. He added that the rewards from dungeons, particularly at the elite levels of 11 to 15, were insufficient to support more than a select few, especially given the inherent high risks involved. The reality of the situation settled in. Adventurers at levels 6 to 10 could secure a comfortable life simply by gathering and selling information or engaging in logistical work. This approach allowed them to recoup their initial investments and ensure enough money for their entire lives, making the daunting prospect of venturing into the high-risk, dangerous levels of 11 to 15 largely unnecessary for most. Sumo underscored the point that there was no real need for humans to risk their lives in elite dungeons, which Qinghai acknowledged, absorbing the information. Qinghai then began to consider how a level 6 adventurer might need to approach things differently, perhaps by completing certain tasks or preparations in advance. The scene shifted to a modern apartment building, standing under a bright, dotted sky, hinting at the ordinary world outside the realm of dungeons. Qinghai held his smartphone, scrolling through what appeared to be an online forum, a quiet realization dawning on him that he was uncovering new, crucial information. Comfortably seated on his sofa, Qinghai reflected on his earlier difficulty finding useful information or raid guides on adventurer forums. He now understood that most adventurers capitalized on such knowledge by selling it, a practice so cutthroat that low-level adventurers could even face danger or death if discovered by those selling the information. Qinghai looked on intently as Xumao continued, revealing another surprising detail. Even if an adventurer repeatedly attempted an exit mission within the same dungeon, they would only receive the mission reward once. This limitation profoundly altered his understanding of dungeon progression. Standing before the vibrant, crackling purple dungeon portal, Qinghai concluded that its true value would now only bring him clear rewards. He resolved to embrace his role as an adventurer once he stepped through its shadowy edges. With a focused intensity, Qinghai began to ready himself, carefully adjusting a blue belt over his gray-silver chain armor, preparing for the impending descent into the unknown. Qinghai was fully geared, his chain armor protecting him as his blue backpack rested firmly against his back, ready for the journey into the dungeon. Standing ready in his chain armor and blue backpack, Qinghai contemplated his next move. He reasoned that since money was not an issue and selling adventure slots carried inherent risks, it would be best to tackle this dungeon alone first, allowing him to decide afterwards if the adventurer's path was truly for him. Qinghai stepped into the swirling, purple dungeon portal, recalling the strategy Xumao had taught him. His primary goal was to gather information, and only once he felt confident would he consider clearing the dungeon fully. A system window appeared, detailing the dungeon he had entered Murloc's hunt season. It was a level 2 challenge, with Qinghai being the first among 5 possible challengers. The exit condition was simply to find a fake lake, while clearing the dungeon required eliminating a tidal Murloc team. He noted he had 7 attempts remaining, and nearly 20 days before the dungeon would expand. Qinghai, now wearing a helmet, looked at the transparent system panel, his expression one of surprise. He observed that the exit mission for this dungeon did not seem to require any combat. Qinghai mentally acknowledged the advantage of the adventurer's basic knowledge and common sense Suma had shared with him. He was glad he had invested in a drone for support, realizing that without it, locating the lake would have taken an extensive amount of time with just his own exploration abilities. A distinct rustling sound echoed through the dense forest, drawing Qinghai's attention as he navigated the new environment. Suddenly, from a higher vantage point, Qinghai spotted several Murlocs moving through the trees below, their presence causing a jolt of concern. A large murloc, its fin prominent on its back, emerged from the foliage, clutching a spear. Behind it, other murlocs followed, traversing the forest floor. The towering murloc paused, its large white eyes fixated upwards. A low, curious sound escaped its throat as it stared at the drone hovering silently above. Shanghai, now clad in chain armor, with his skin glowing a faint blue beneath his helmet, held a peculiar device. As he examined the object, a sudden question arose in his mind regarding its purpose and function. The device's screen displayed a tactical overview of an aquatic environment, revealing a prominent purple creature at its center, surrounded by several smaller, white figures. The display mapped out the immediate hostile presences, signaling the dangers ahead. Suddenly, a formidable murloc lunged forward, its wide maw filled with sharp teeth, emitting a fierce, tearing sound as it charged. The creature's spiky blue body and glowing green eyes conveyed an immediate and terrifying threat. The forest path stretched under a bright, late afternoon sky as some tiny object was flying in the sky, observing everything beneath it. And it was none other than Shanghai's drone, which was observing the murloc leader. Shanghai, clad in his chain armor and helmet, stared wide-eyed at his controller, his mind racing to identify the creature he had just glimpsed. He wondered if it had been a murloc. He observed the massive, striped blue murloc, noting its distinctly different appearance and aura compared to the murlocs he had previously encountered. Despite the differences, he concluded it was a higher-level murloc with significantly stronger combat abilities. Deciding to put that thought aside for the moment, Shanghai refocused, gripping his controller as a sudden, sharp sound indicated a new development. His resolve was clear. First, he would complete the exit mission, and only then would he return confront the distinctive murloc leader. A small drone continued its steady flight over the forest. From the dense foliage, the imposing blue murloc leader emerged onto the path, followed by two smaller, green murlocs, all now visible to Shanghai as his drone maintained its aerial surveillance. The murloc leader stood its ground, its gaze seemingly fixed on the sun setting over the distant trees. A few minutes later, a burst of light emanated from Shanghai's controller as his armored hand tightened its grip, confirming he had successfully located what he was searching for. Resting against a tree, Shanghai consulted his system, which displayed murloc's hunt season. He realized the presence of murlocs in the forest implied a large lake must be nearby, and saw that the exit condition for the mission was the fake lake. His eyes scanned the detailed system interface, confirming murloc's hunt season is challenge level 2, requiring him to eliminate a tidal murloc team to clear it. With the exit mission now complete, Shanghai knew exactly what he needed to do next. A system notification suddenly appeared before Shanghai, alerting him that the map was changing and the dungeon's rating was rapidly increasing. Clad in his chain armor and helmet, Shanghai looked down at the controller in his hands, his face showing a deep blue hue and his eyes wide with confusion at the unexpected system message. From behind, Shanghai maintained his gaze at the controller, unaware of the rustling sound just behind him. A murloc was aggressively leaping down from the terrain, closing in. Shanghai turned, his blue-tinged face contorted in shock, and a bead of sweat forming, as he registered the presence of the murloc, a thought quickly crossing his mind about whether it was a special orange murloc. The murloc, a menacing orange creature with sharp teeth and wide fins, lunged forward with incredible speed, its jaws open in a direct assault. Reacting swiftly, Shanghai swung his axe, the blade glowing with a light blue energy as it met the incoming murloc in a forceful chop. His armored foot landed with a distinct impact on the ground, emphasizing the quick and precise movement he executed during the intense confrontation. Shanghai moved with agility, swiftly evading another one of the murloc's attacks, a low grunt of effort escaping him as he repositioned himself in the fight. He tightened his grip on the axe, his determined expression still tinged with blue, as he realized his quick reaction had saved him from a serious injury, a narrow escape he was fortunate to achieve. Shanghai stood over his broken drone controller, a profound sense of disappointment washing over him. The device, now shattered, represented a significant setback, leaving his heart heavy with regret. As the swift murloc darted across his vision, Shanghai quickly shifted his focus from his personal loss. Its incredible speed demanded immediate and careful attention. There was no time to dwell on anything else, while facing such a formidable and agile opponent. The air crackled with tension as Shanghai found himself surrounded, the two large murlocs and the distinct blue, striped murloc now fixing their gaze upon him, ready to engage. In an instant, a murloc's sharp claw lunged directly at Shanghai, forcing him to react with desperate speed as he braced for the impact, his weapon held tight. With a powerful, decisive swing, Shanghai brought his weapon down, a splash of red blood marking the impact of Murloc's blow. His face showed the grim determination of the moment. Shanghai found himself disoriented, a sudden realization washing over him amidst a blurry, chaotic scene, as if his mind struggled to grasp what was happening. On his knees, Shanghai, clad in chain armor, felt utterly defeated, trapped with no way out. Blue liquid streamed from his eyes, reflecting his internal despair as he realized he had been pushed to a dead end. The Murloc leader, a vivid creature with fiery orange and crimson highlights, mocked Cheng Hai from the foreground, deeming him a disappointment and leaving him to the surrounding green Murlocs and their spears. A close-up of Cheng Hai's face revealed his profound regret as a spear tip hovered near him. He desperately wished he had never entered the dungeon or embarked on the path of an adventurer. Cheng Hai's thoughts drifted to the books and novel series he once wrote. Cheng Hai novel series prominently displayed. These stories had fueled his youthful dreams of becoming an adventurer, making him yearn for the thrilling life depicted within them. He reflected on a past moment of triumph, a time when he felt a surge of satisfaction. Wearing his chain armor, Cheng Hai stood victorious over a fallen monster, a clear reminder of the achievements that once seemed within his grasp. Cheng Hai recalled years spent desiring to explore dungeons, a recurring dream that drove him to intense training, pushing his physical limits as he bench-pressed. He wondered if, as an adventurer, he could truly emulate the main characters from his beloved books. His mind lingered on the idea of adventurers who had faced countless life and death battles, experiencing the nervous, exciting career he had always envisioned. He remembered conversations, perhaps with Su Mao, pondering the true nature of such a perilous life. Now surrounded by spears, the stark reality of his situation set in. Cheng Hai acknowledged his deep fear of death and bitterly admitted to himself that he was a coward, unable to fight effectively. Despite his fear and self-doubt, a spark ignited within Cheng Hai, his armored hand clenched tightly around a spear, a sudden, desperate resolve taking hold as if to defy his own admitted weaknesses. Cheng Hai, donned in chain armor, swung his axe with desperate resolve, his face stained red, a clear indication of his perilous state. He pushed back against the encroaching Murlocs, his mind screaming that he was an adventurer and refused to fall here. Suddenly, a colossal orange creature, larger and more formidable than the Murlocs, emerged with wide, menacing eyes. Its unexpected appearance left Cheng Hai in stunned uncertainty. Despite the new threat, Cheng Hai continued to navigate the battlefield with swift, agile movements. He dodged the Murloc's spear attacks, striking down one of them, as the large orange Murloc's fin loomed in the foreground. Amidst the ongoing skirmish, Cheng Hai's thoughts raced, frantically searching for any hidden strengths or tactics. He desperately considered what remaining resources or abilities he could possibly leverage to turn the tide. As the fight continued, a system panel shimmered into Cheng Hai's view. It displayed his core attributes strength, agility, and physique and, more importantly, notified him of a newly acquired title, Can Fight Murloc One-on-One. With newfound determination, Cheng Hai bellowed, activating the title Can Fight Murloc One-on-One. A golden, geometric light pulsed above him as he prepared to fully utilize this unexpected advantage. A system notification appeared, detailing the powerful effects of his newly equipped title. It would automatically identify the strongest Murloc nearby and grant him an increase in strength, agility, and perception, matching that of his chosen target. The system quickly confirmed the activation, notifying Cheng Hai of a significant surge in his attributes, a gain of +1 strength, +8 agility, and +6 sense. He felt the immediate rush of newfound power coursing through him. Empowered by the title, Cheng Hai moved with incredible speed and fluidity. His stance transformed, ready for a decisive strike, as the activated title shimmered around him. With a powerful, swift swing of his axe, Cheng Hai unleashed his enhanced strength. The Murloc was instantly struck, disintegrating into a burst of purple energy, marking the devastating effect of his newfound power. Cheng Hai felt a profound change within himself. His body now felt lighter, and a new surge of strength coursed through him. He observed that the Murloc's movements seemed to slow, and his vision sharpened, leading him to wonder if his perception had also been enhanced. Standing amidst the Murlocs, Cheng Hai felt a surge of possibility, recognizing that with his current abilities, anything felt attainable. The Murloc leader, with its wide fins and gaping mouth, regarded Cheng Hai with a peculiar sense of bewilderment. The Murloc leader looked at Cheng Hai, perplexed, wondering how the human had suddenly gained such strength, and what he might have done. He moved towards Murloc with his spear and sword ready. Cheng Hai's gaze fixed on the Murloc leader, conveying that this final formidable opponent was the only one left standing. The Murloc leader responded with a challenge, asserting that Cheng Hai should not be overconfident just because he had defeated its lesser underlings. Cheng Hai gulped down healing potion from a vial, the potent substance leaving streaks on his face as he desperately consumed it. As the liquid entered his system, Cheng Hai's scars and the areas of his skin where it touched began to visibly sparkle and glow with an intense, blue light. The scene shifts and Cheng Hai collapses onto the ground. Despite his exhaustion, a wave of profound refreshment washed over him, a sense of immense relief settling in as he defeated Orange Murloc. A few minutes passed by. After his strenuous recovery, Cheng Hai sat up slowly in his chain armor, a deep breath escaping him as he took in his surroundings. his skin still bearing a faint red hue. Shanghai realized the extent of his recovery, surprised by how quickly his body had bounced back. As Shanghai pondered his state, a system window abruptly materialized before him, its golden, ethereal glow capturing his attention. The status window displayed Shanghai's updated profile, revealing his adventure rating as a level 3 newbie. He noted his foundation attributes, including strength, agility, physique, wisdom, sense and charm, along with new titles like Can Fight Murloc One-on-One and Survival After Death. He was particularly surprised by one specific stat. Shanghai's eyes widened in disbelief as he saw that his sense attribute had unexpectedly increased, a development he had not anticipated. With a renewed focus, Shanghai gestured towards another system interface, determined to check how his exit mission had been altered by recent events. The mission details appeared, titled Murloc's Hunt Season, indicating an unknown challenge difficulty. His exit mission now required him to survive for 3 minutes, while being hunted by an abnormally strong Murloc, while the clearance mission involved destroying a Murloc's hatching pond. Shanghai imagined Murloc's hatching pond. It should be in a pool of water teeming with orange Murloc eggs, and a small Murloc creature. Shaking off his thoughts, Shanghai stooped down, picking up his spear, resolute in his decision to confront the challenges ahead. Shanghai walked towards Dungeon Portal, realizing that the clearance mission for this particular dungeon was far beyond his current capabilities, a challenge he simply couldn't handle right now. He decided to leave it behind. As Shanghai held his staff, purple lightning, like energy, crackled intensely around his body, giving his skin a noticeable bluish tint. His expression was serious as he seemed to contemplate his next move. The purple lightning continued to spark around Shanghai more intensely, drawing his attention. He looked on with a questioning gaze, unsure what this sudden shift in energy meant. Shanghai turned his gaze back to the dungeon portal, the purple energy still swirling around him. He couldn't help but wonder if his eyes were playing tricks on him, as the dungeon's amorphous entrance seemed to have visibly expanded. Driven by a mix of curiosity and concern, Shanghai extended his hand, encased in a metallic gauntlet, moving closer towards dungeon portal. Shanghai's hand was violently struck down by the sudden force of the dungeon portal, causing a blinding white flash of light to erupt. The sudden impact made him flinch. A system window instantly appeared before Shanghai, delivering an unwelcome message that his level was insufficient, and he was unable to enter the dungeon. The notification also stated there were 10 remaining challenges within, and that the entrance would expand further in 89 days, 23 hours and 42 minutes. Shanghai stared at the system window, the golden text reflecting in his eyes. He pondered the unexpected message, wondering if the dungeon had somehow upgraded its requirements, given the insufficient level warning. A wave of realization washed over Shanghai. He suddenly understood that the exit mission he had recently completed, with its surprising difficulty and generous reward, must have been from a higher-level dungeon all along. It explained why the challenge had felt so overwhelming at the time. Shanghai stood before the massive, purple dungeon portal once more, now holding the glowing system panel in his hands. He continued to examine it closely, his expression still bearing a hint of confusion as he tried to decipher its implications. In the gym, Shanghai, his skin strained under a heavy barbell, lifting it overhead. Nearby, Su Mao wiped sweat from his face with a towel, his attention suddenly drawn to the powerful clang of weights. Su Mao observed Shanghai, who was still overhead pressing a heavy barbell in the gym. And Ran's expression was one of genuine shock, a silent acknowledgement of the incredible feat he was witnessing. Su Mao watched Shanghai, who grimaced with exertion as he pressed the heavy weight. It was astonishing to Su Mao that a newcomer like Shanghai could achieve a level of strength that usually took a year of dedicated training, all in less than 2 months. Su Mao's eyes narrowed in thought as he contemplated Shanghai's training regimen. He realized that the immense load Shanghai handled would have sent anyone else to the IQ, yet Shanghai could walk away afterwards as if it were a normal workout. Amidst the gym equipment, a Shanghai stood atop a weight, sweat beading on his skin as he wiped his brow. From a distance, someone observed his remarkable physique, mentally estimating his potential at an impressive level, noting that trainer and had truly missed out on a promising talent this time. Shanghai's eyes widened slightly, a look of mild surprise crossing his face as he processed the sudden observation directed his way. Su Mao extended a bottle towards Shanghai, congratulating him on reaching 12 points in both strength and agility. He assured Shanghai that his current physique was more than sufficient to successfully complete the exit mission of a newbie dungeon. As Shanghai took a drink from the offered bottle, and Ran pressed him once more, inquiring if he would truly not consider signing a contract with Whale's Gym. Shanghai paused, a confident smirk playing on his lips. He firmly stated his desire to remain an adventurer with complete freedom, unburdened and unrestrained by any contract. And Ran responded with a resigned shrug, expressing his disappointment. He had hoped they could have raided dungeons together as colleagues, lamenting the missed opportunity. Cheng Hai, however, offered a different perspective, suggesting they could still raid dungeons together even without being colleagues. He then casually mentioned his plan to acquire dungeon slots from others and asked for any warnings or suggestions regarding the process. Cheng Hai, holding a bottle, expressed surprise and confusion upon hearing about the unspecialized alliance from Xu Mao. Su Mao pondered the information, wondering if this group was indeed the largest unspecialized faction as he suspected. Su Mao explained to Cheng Hai for anyone seeking to purchase an adventurer slot through the black market, it was advisable to choose a low-ranked dungeon entrance guaranteed by the unspecialized alliance, or one they operated themselves. Cheng Hai questioned Xu Mao's advice, seeking to understand the reasoning behind such a specific recommendation given the nature of adventurer slot trading. Su Mao clarified that the adventurer slot trade inherently carried significant risks for both the buyer and the seller. Sellers feared experienced adventurers posing as novices, while buyers worried about sellers failing to deliver after payment. Despite their high commission, Su Mao emphasized that the unspecialized alliance provided essential contacts for both buyers and sellers in dungeon-related businesses, making them a trustworthy entity. A look of understanding settled on Cheng Hai's face as he finally grasped the implications of Xu Mao's explanation. Cheng Hai, resting in his room, meticulously checked his phone, finding only one seller in Yunxiao City who seemed reliable, provided there was a guarantee from the unspecialized alliance. On his phone, Cheng Hai messaged Yunxiao Old Driver, inquiring about available slots and trade methods. The response from Yunxiao indicated they were waiting for 2 more people before beginning the raid. Then the typing indicator appeared. 2 days passed, and Cheng Hai was seen walking through Yunxiao City Citizen Park as dusk settled. Cheng Hai was preoccupied with his phone, which seemed to be sending or receiving notifications. A chat screen displayed Cheng Hai's message confirming his arrival to Yunxiao, who promptly replied, letting him know he was already spotted. Yunxiao called out to Cheng Hai, directing him to where he was. Yunxiao, the dungeon seller, actively approached Cheng Hai, waving for him to come closer. As Yunxiao came into view, Cheng Hai confirmed the identity of the person he was meeting. Yunxiao confirmed his identity, then asked Cheng Hai if he was the Dongshan citizen that likes to write from the online forum. Cheng Hai offered a polite greeting in return, a slight smile on his face. Yunxiao gestured towards others waiting, explaining that Cheng Hai was the last to arrive and that after signing a contract, they would all be led into the dungeon. Alliance's contractor began to formalize the agreement, meticulously drawing a star symbol on a document with a quill. Alliance's contractor, a distinct figure with pointed ears and glasses, cheerfully acknowledged that everything was in order, ready to proceed with the contracts. The contract is divided into 3 parts. First, the buyer's final payment is securely deposited in the account we provide. The seller, in turn, will assist in completing the designated transformation services, turning ordinary people into adventurers. Once you return from the dungeon alive, the final payment will be released to the seller. He continued, outlining key safety protocols for inside the dungeon. Buyers must not violate safety agreements, and sellers must not ignore dangerous situations or use violence against buyers. He also stressed the critical importance of keeping the dungeon entrance's specific location a secret before asking if anyone had questions about the contract. The Adventurer Forum user, identified as leader, along with the Adventurer Forum user known as Liang, both indicated they had no further questions. Cheng Hai, known as Dongshan citizen that likes to write, and the Adventurer Forum user known as Hate, also affirmed that they had no questions, signaling their readiness to proceed. The Alliance contractor holds up a glowing document, announcing that the contract has been successfully established, its magical emblem shimmering at the bottom. 2 men react to the magical phenomenon, their arm is glowing with newly imprinted emblem. One muscular man exclaims in wonder at the shining light. The Alliance contractor, holding the completed contract, states that his task is finished. Cheng Hai stands with Yunxiao and other new adventurers as the contractor prepares to depart, leaving them to their next steps. Yunxiao instructs everyone to follow his actions exactly. With a powerful shout, Yunxiao activates his status window, causing golden light and fragmented text to erupt from his chest, confirming the command's effectiveness. Following Yunxiao's demonstration, 2 other adventurers also successfully activate their status windows with a shout. Yunxiao addresses the group, explaining that while everyone can see basic adventurer information like foundation attributes, the full content of each status window is personal and only visible to the individual adventurer. He also instructs them to swipe down to check their missions. At the same time, another person alongside Yunxiao tells everyone to submit their exit missions, so they can be sorted accordingly. A fellow adventurer expresses shock and dismay upon seeing his unexpectedly low foundation attributes on his status window, while Cheng Hai stands nearby, observing the revelation. Cheng Hai thoughtfully considers the concept of missions, his expression reflecting a mix of contemplation and slight concern about what lies ahead. Cheng Hai's personal status window displays his assigned mission, to enter the Banshee Forest, a challenge level 4 dungeon. His exit mission is to hear Banshee's voice, while the clearance mission requires him to kill Banshee. A jolt of realization runs through Cheng Hai as he rereads his mission details. He questions why a Banshee, a creature he knows isn't typically found in beginner-ranked dungeons, is part of his assignment, prompting him to ponder the true nature of this dungeon. Cheng Hai considered the strange monster he encountered. If a creature in a beginner-ranked dungeon was not listed in the common monster manual for new adventurers, he realized there could only be two stark possibilities. The thought of a peculiar bug within this dungeon, much like an annoying one at home, crossed his mind. His mind raced, narrowing down the possibilities. Such an anomaly was either incredibly rare, or there was a far more terrifying explanation. The grim conclusion settled over Cheng Hai. Any adventurers who had encountered such a monster before must have perished within the dungeon, leaving no record of its existence. Suddenly a system warning blared, interrupting the group's uneasy calm. The system notified that the man, Su Mao, had violated safety regulations by failing to state the correct exit mission. Cheng Hai observed the scene, realizing something was amiss. Cheng Hai's gaze fixed on Su Mao. A wave of suspicion washed over him, pondering if the man had deliberately misrepresented his mission. Another person, ever observant, expressed surprise that someone had triggered a safety regulation so quickly, before they had even begun their task. Man who lied about his mission, visibly flustered, began to speak, trying to explain his situation to Cat Lover and the others present. He frantically insisted there must be a bug in the system, adamantly claiming that his exit mission was indeed to collect high-value herbs. He seemed desperate for them to believe him. Cat Lover, his eyes glowing with an intense blue light, calmly but firmly countered person's claim. He stated that while the contract master's agreement might not be perfect, for a newbie like you, it would be without error. Cat Lover then directly accused the person of lying about his exit mission. The truth spoken with such conviction by Cat Lover seemed to strip him of his composure. He stumbled backward, collapsing to the ground in shock and defeat, unable to articulate a response. A panicked man, dressed in a suit and glasses, found himself gripped tightly by a hand, his face contorted in a desperate yell of distress. Cat Lover observed calmly as leader intervened, explaining that the panicked adventurer was new and unfamiliar with the rules, making mistakes understandable. Leader asked for another chance for the struggling man. The panicked man, still sweating and wide, questioned if that was truly the case as the grip on his arm remained firm. Desperation visible on his face, the panicked man knelt before Cat Lover, pleading for another opportunity and apologizing profusely. Cat Lover conceded, granting the man another chance but sternly warned that there would be no more leniency in the future. Young Sao instructed everyone present to declare their exit missions clearly, emphasizing the need to avoid further errors. Man with glasses shared his mission to find the lake's Banshee. Others revealed their diverse objectives. Second person shared his mission, which was hearing the Banshee's sound. Cheng Hai also shared his mission, which was observing it for 10 seconds. Cat Lover pondered the various missions, considering the combined objectives of finding, looking at, and hearing the lake's Banshee. Another individual expressed his concern about the danger level of these missions. Long-haired expert standing nearby was just observing everything. Cat Lover explained that the missions could be quite easy, depending on the circumstances and the effectiveness of their predation. The panicked adventurer looked on in shock at this explanation. Everyone observed a silhouetted figure of Cat Lover in the distance. Everyone questioned what he was doing. Young Sao, with his prominent beard and muscular build, confidently declared his next move, announcing his intention to summon the lake's Banshee. His smirk suggested he was sure of his methods. As Cat Lover played a tune on his harmonica, musical notes floated around him, a peculiar method that led one to wonder how he knew this was the way to summon the Banshee. Cat Lover, however, simply considered his knowledge a commercial secret, keeping his calm demeanor. From the reddish depths of the water, a head emerged, with long, light brown hair and distinctive elfin ears, accompanied by a splash. The Banshee, with its striking golden eyes, slowly pulled itself further from the water, its emergence stirring the still lake. Suddenly, the Banshee was fully revealed, floating in the air before them. Newbies reacted with a visible gasp, pointing at the spectral figure, exclaiming that the Banshee was truly out, while Cat Lover remained poised. As the scene unfolded, everyone confirmed that their exit mission had been completed, the words appearing alongside a data screen. An intense focus settled upon Cheng Hai as he began an internal countdown. He prepared for what was to come. Then, with a burst of light and geometric forms, a system window began to materialize directly in front of Cheng Hai, prompting him to instinctively recognize it as his status window appearing before his eyes. The status window fully formed, presenting a clear and unambiguous message: exit mission is completed, confirming Cheng Hai's successful endeavors. Young Sao, holding up an earplug, turned to Cheng Hai, sternly instructing everyone to put on their earplugs. He explained that the banshee was about to sing, signaling a critical moment requiring preparation. Fat Man, holding an earplug, looked at Yun Xiao with a puzzled and slightly concerned expression, asking what would happen if they chose not to wear the earplugs, unsure of the potential consequences. Cheng Hai felt a sudden realization that he was bleeding from his nose. He pondered how he could be bleeding so soon after just hearing something for a short while. A close call, Cheng Hai mused, thankful for his earplugs that had muffled the sound, saving him from a potentially fatal blow. It was clear that this unlisted dungeon creature was far more dangerous than anything in the newbie's common monster manual. Cat Lover, calm and precise, ceased his actions as he held a small dark object between his fingers, which used to create music rhyme to summon Banshee. Banshee Ghost with long flowing hair and striking yellow eyes raised her arm, a bright light radiating behind her, but soon it quickly jumped in water. With the exit mission seemingly complete, one of the figures in the distance suggested that everyone should return the way they came, signaling their departure from the dungeon. Everyone turned back, conveying surprise at the suggestion to simply go back. One of them stepped forward, asserting that he had come to the dungeon because of the valuable plants and minerals found within. He then accused the others of trying to rush them away to claim the resources for themselves. Cat Lover gazed at him with an intense, cold stare like he was deciding whether to kill him.